friends, is beloved John Moore. And we're going to do something a little different today. I'm going to get my notes out, so give me a moment. All right. So if you don't know who John Moore is, I don't know if any of you were at his workshop yesterday. Yay, I'm so happy. So Family Constellations is a therapeutic spiritual process pulling from indigenous and metaphysical ideas. We're going to leave it there for now. We're going to get deep in it. Just hang on. But John also is a spiritual coach, spiritual teacher, writer, because I've been deep in his blog this last week, teacher of A Course in Miracles, and all-around spiritual guy, which is why he's up here with me today, because I wanted to talk to him. As you know, if you've been here the last couple of weeks, we've been in a conversation and practice around prayer and all the ways that we can pray, the ways that we think of and the ways that we don't, all the ways that we can let go of, and maybe some new ways to engage in prayer that we maybe haven't yet. And one of those ways we can pray is collectively. Yes, we can, can't we? And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the collective prayer. Not only the prayer that you and I can pray together, those of us with breath in our bodies today, but also the prayer we can pray with the unseen and the collective that includes our ancestors and those that have come before and those who may come in the future, all part of the collective consciousness that is now, that has been named a whole bunch of things. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So my first question for John is, what was it like for you the first time you knew you were in the collective field?
Wow. It could either be my first family constellation or the experience of being in a spiritual community, whether I started out in New Thought at Unity on the Bay in Miami, and there was something about, because I was not a church guy growing up, I was, yeah. So, yeah, there was something about the rituals and the love that I felt in that space in Miami that and everyone was feeling it. And one of the ushers had a tambourine. She was going up and down the aisles. It was this excitement around love and around God. And I think that was the first time I really felt it.
And so knowing what you know now, as a family constellations practitioner, as a Course of Miracles teacher, because they definitely have a parallel, what do you know about, I know in the family constellation world it's called the field of knowing. We might call it in New Thought collective consciousness. It's called a lot of things, right?
Morphogenetic fields.
The morphic field, a lot of things. What do you know about accessing that field and what makes it powerful and what makes it transformative? What do you know about it today, having touched it earlier in your life?
What I know about it today is that we're always in it, whether we're aware of it or not. So we're in it right now, influencing each other just by that beautiful song. That was perfect. Thank you both. And thank you, everyone. But we're just by our presence, by the energy we bring, we're influencing each other. And then when we get very intentional, I start every workshop with opening the 4 directions of the Native American medicine wheel, as I was taught by my teacher, to let ourselves know that there's something different happening. Like, we're in sacred space right now. We're not just coming in and chatting and everything. We can do that too, but then we get very intentional about, okay, this is now, we're letting our unconscious mind no, something is different here. And when people come to do a family constellation, just because you set the intention, like, I'm going to be there Saturday, April 18th at 2 o'clock to do this work, people start feeling things before they come. People that think they were going to be there, something comes up and they're not there, and someone who didn't know anything about it shows up, hears about it from a friend. So it calls in who is supposed to be there, and there's this divine intelligence that knows exactly what's supposed to happen, exactly who's going to be there, what we're going to take a look at, and how we can be of service to our sisters and brothers in that space. And it blows me away every single time, and I've been doing it 13 years now. And I'm not exaggerating, I am blown away by what happens and what is revealed, and how the magic goes way beyond anything I could plan or make happen. I'm just allowing it to happen, and it has really informed the rest of my life.
So I read some of your blogs, and one of the things that I read talked about
Uh-oh, which one?
you talked about your calling, and that you were basically called in the field. You kind of stumbled into the field through that unity experience. And then tell us about the experience where you got called to do this work.
Yeah, so I met the woman that became my teacher at a book club at Unity on the Bay. We were studying the book You Can Create an Exceptional Life by Louise Hay and Cheryl Richardson. And the facilitator of that group knew I played the Crystal Singing Bowl, so she asked if I would come and play for the group. And then one of the attendees said, she was talking about this thing called family constellations, and she was just going on about it, and I was like, "Ugh, just what we need is another modality." I really dismissed it. And then I went and played my crystal bowl for who would become my teacher, Michelle Bleckner, became my teacher, but she had a meditation group in her living room every Wednesday night, and she invited me to play the bowl. And someone there was talking about how amazing family constellations was, and I was like, okay, I gotta try it. So the next weekend, she happened to be having a constellation. I went, and she did a constellation for me around relationship. And one of the things that we do in a constellation is have people in the group represent different members of your family, or different qualities or places or things like addiction or betrayal. But one of the things I shared in the intake interview was I'd always heard that my dad wouldn't be okay if he had lived. He died when I was 7. If he had lived, he wouldn't have been okay with me being gay. And I all heard that from my older siblings. And they weren't saying it to be mean, they were just reporting what they experienced with him, because they're quite a bit older than me. I was an oops 7 years later. So the person so in the course of the constellation, the facilitator asked questions of the representatives. And the representative for my dad said, "Hey, I would have been more okay with it than you think." And in that moment, I had the memory, the spontaneous memory of these little toys. They were called upsy downsies. They had pom-poms for hair, they were pink and lavender, and they had little vehicles. In the 70s, definitely marketed to little girls, not little boys. And my dad bought them for me. And I hadn't thought about those things in like 30 years. I'm like, wow, I'm getting tingles just talking about it. He would have been okay with it. And it was a game changer, because what I didn't realize was it's not okay to be gay was still a program playing in the back of my head. And there was never any shame around it with my family, but I was very reserved. Like, I wouldn't be telling the story before that family constellation and saying that I'm gay in front of all of you people that I just met, some of you. And it was a game changer. And so now I can speak about it when it will be helpful. And I feel closer to my dad now, and I feel him cheering me on and continuing his legacy in a different way. But that was my first experience in the knowing field, and I was like, how do you learn how to do this? And she said, I'm glad you asked, I'll teach you.
So can you take a moment and think about something in your own life where you could imagine going back and having an opportunity to put some pieces together from your own history or from your lineage history, and have an opportunity to let that fall into place in a new way, that makes your current life work a little better, where there's a little bit more peace, where there's a little bit more ease. Could you imagine that kind of collective prayer might actually be really transformative for you in your own life? And now I want you to think about that kind of work where we can access a field where time is less meaningful in the way that we understand it. And we can access memory, we can access conversation, we can access whatever needs to be accessed in that moment for a healing in the current timeline. How might that be really useful in the world we live in today? And when we think about prayer in this much more expanded, larger way, imagine what becomes possible when we want to rearrange some of the puzzle pieces of the current time. That could really use some rearranging. Can we agree?
May I share a practice that one of my teachers gave me?
Absolutely.
About prayer?
Yeah.
So I know a lot of us, especially if you're in this room, may have had parents that did things that we wouldn't have wanted or didn't do things that we would have wanted. And one of the mantras that my teacher said is, eventually, if we can all accept the love from our parents as they gave it, not as we wanted it. And that's a tough one. But what we can do is speak to them at night before you fall asleep in your quiet time, maybe even look at a picture of them, and say, "Dear Mom, please come to me when I'm sleeping, when I'm easier to reach, and give me the love you would have if you could have." Or, "Dear Dad, I never met you in physical form, but I know you know who I am. Please give me the love that you would have if you could have." Because what I know from doing this work is, once they're not limited to these bodies, they want to show up. Every single time, they want to be there for us. They want to support us in ways that maybe they never learned how to be a parent from their parent, or maybe they were carrying so much pain, or maybe, in my case, my oldest brother only lived a few days. He was born very premature, and my mother carried that pain of that loss, and along with other losses, and it really helped me understand why she turned to alcohol, because there was a lot of loss in her life. She lost her dad before she was born, she lost my dad, and she lost her firstborn. It's a lot of loss in one person's life. And I knew about those events, but when I started doing family constellations was the first time I saw all them together. I'm like, oh, now I have more compassion for her. Because at the time it felt like, why can't she just show up and be my mom? But it gave me a broader understanding.
So you were speaking about this prayer that we could do at night as we're falling asleep. And because often we're more open to receive that message or to receive that information. And one of the things I was thinking about a lot that makes the knowing field or accessing collective consciousness, or what makes a collective prayer process like the one that you lead and the little bit of work we're going to do together today, what makes that powerful is the willingness to open ourselves intuitively, consciously to the unseen, right? And I would call that prayer. Right? Whatever it is you need to do, whatever process, whether it's call in the directions, whether it's light candles or sing or breathe in an intentional way that says, okay, Spirit, I am here, I am willing, I am open to be connected to this greater reality. And that is a prayerful conversation you're willing to now get into with this greater reality, with the time-space continuum that is unable to be seen necessarily very easily. So take a moment right now and just think about, when you think of that as prayer, that, I'm going to get together with some other people and I'm going to open my intuition and I am going to ask for connection to something more that maybe I only allow in my sleep or in my dreams. But it's something I could invite in my waking life for my transformation, for the collective good. So take a moment with me right now and just imagine yourself making that request. And notice anything that comes up for you that might be in the way of connecting with the greater reality. And I just want you to be aware of that and just notice that. And maybe in the next few minutes, before we move into our practice, be willing to let it go. Be willing to put whatever that is that might be in the way, be willing to put it down.
And even better, or in addition to, if it's something that you've noticed, it's a pattern that's repeating generation from generation, whether it's addiction or a health challenge or money issues or anything, can I take that and hand it back to my ancestors? Because they are so willing to take it. They don't want you to struggle with some of the same things they had to deal with or experience or that tripped them up, because why would they have gone to so much trouble to keep the family going if they, even if they weren't able to express that, or it's like, really, John, them? Or you don't know who your ancestors are. It's okay, because they know who you are and they want you to do well. And so giving it back, there's like this team that's there to support you, and I can take whatever pain that I might have inherited from my family. They don't want us to carry it. They want us to hand it back so that we can be free and move forward.
That's yes. And I want you to, even if it feels like I'm not trying to hang out with my ancestors, like even if it feels like I have a story that no, they're not invited. I want you to trust the divine in this. I want you to trust the divine intelligence of the universe, that the ancestors that are for you and for your healing and for your transformation are the ones that are in the room. Trust that process.
The highest version of them wants to help you.
All right, so my last question before we get into practice is, I was watching one of the videos that I came across as I was deep diving into family constellations about sort of the knowing field and or the morphic field, as Rupert Sheldrake called it. Rupert Sheldrake. Anyways, Rupert Sheldrake, for those of you geeky metaphysics people, go check him out. Anyways, it was talking about the science, that the research that's happened around murmurations. You know, when you see the birds move in this incredible way, these huge hundreds of birds together, especially starlings make these incredible patterns, and they move in a way that is unexplainable. And they've been researching it. It makes no sense. They make turns and shift shape in a way that there's no way they could have communicated to each other, like, okay, everybody turn left now. Like, that's not what's happening. So, and it's the same thing with schools of fish. If you've seen video, or if you've ever gone scuba diving and see these hundreds and hundreds of fish, and they just suddenly shift, and nobody bumps into each other. And it's unexplainable. This is much like the collective field, right? That there is something going on. There is a pattern, an energy in the field that we are moving in that is moving us if we let it. Don't be the fish that messes up the whole thing, right? Like, don't be the bird who didn't get the signal that we're all moving now, and then the pattern's not so cute because you're not getting the message. Which is one way to think about the messes of our lives, is that we have shut down our willingness and our capacity that is natural to us to be moved by this field of knowing, this collective wisdom, the energy body of the divine that is saying, like, darling, I'm like trying to move you, come on. And the messes of our lives get cleaned up when we're willing to be moved. The nudge, you wrote about the nudge a lot. So that's my last question. How do you allow the nudge, the collective field, the divine intelligence, whatever you want to name it, It seems to me, based on what I read in your blog, that you really live with that nudge. When you get nudged, you accept it. So that's my last question. How did that come to be a way of life for you?
The more that I saw that when John and John's ego made the decisions, things were not working out so well. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. But when I asked the question, I would often stop before a decision, whether it's should I go out to this event or anything. Holy Spirit, is it my highest choice? And I wait and I listen for an answer. And how I get that communication is these tingles that go all through my body. And I've felt it several times already here when you all were singing, when you asked everyone to take a moment. And that is the guidance system that I have developed. Sometimes I use a pendulum and to communicate, and it happens in the weirdest places. Like I remember, I think it was 2012. I was living in California. My mom had just passed in 2011. I left my life in Florida, moved all the way across the country to start over. I was going to help a friend of mine. We're going to open a spiritual retreat center together. Nothing flowed. Sponsors came and left, and it just got really weird. And I was in the airport flying back to New York State for my sister's wedding, and the gate next to me announced a flight to Miami, and I got these tingles all through me.
Oh, I got tingles listening.
And I was like, no, I'm not moving back to I just let go of everything. I sold everything. I put everything in my car. I moved to California. I'm starting fresh. They announced the flight again. Tingles through my whole body. I'm like, okay, noted, but I'm not doing anything about that right now. I went to the wedding, got back, I couldn't imagine, got even worse. Like just nothing was working, nothing that I tried. I'm like, okay, I guess it's time to move back to Miami. So I put everything back in my car and moved back. And I joined the book group at Unity on the Bay. And that's when I met my teacher. And that's why I'm here right now. So didn't make sense, but it did to the divine plan, to the knowing field, to spirit, to God.
You accepted the nudge. You accepted the nudge. And it doesn't always come easily. But this is a form of prayer that we can pray together and learn how to be open to the nudge, to be a part of that collective field and move as the murmuration that is so beautiful and so worth being a part of. So I'm going to...